Hello and welcome everybody to another iteration of Nerding Out with Nic Bodiford. I am your host, Nic Bodiford. The date is October 31st. Happy Halloween 2022. It is Monday, Monday of end of week 8, beginning of week 9. We're switching the show date up. Going to see how this goes. Want to start by what we're going to cover today is a week 8 recap with a look ahead to week 9 and hopefully give you guys some actionable information for waivers, either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when your league or leagues do things. So we'll start with the teams that were on bye and that are on bye right now. And then I'm going to switch over to my week 9 ranks to try to use those as a guide for what we're going to talk about for the rest of the show. So the two teams on bye in week 8, Kansas City Chiefs and Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, both teams have pretty significant news to report. With Kansas City, Andy Reid brings on board another wide receiver with a strange off-field past in Kadarius Toney. Tony's interesting. He is a run after catch freak. I don't know that he's actually that much of a field stretcher. I mean, he can get downfield, but he is a creative runner with the ball in his hands. And in some way, it's kind of similar to how Reid used Tyreek Hill over the last few years. Hill would obviously get downfield and they'd take shots well beyond the 20-yard mark, but they got him the ball in the short to intermediate areas frequently and tried to set him up in run after catch situations. That's the idea here with Kadarius Toney. Tony's upside, I broke this down on Twitter. I did a training camp battle at 4for4, which you can go find. It was between who was going to be the wide receiver one in New York. Will it be Kadarius Toney or Kenny Golladay? And I wrote up how Toney was top 5 in yards per route run and targets per route run last year among NFL wide receivers with at least 50 targets. He was at least top 5 in one of them, top 10, I think, in the other. You can go look him up. But the point is, the guy is an elite NFL wide receiver. The hamstrings seem to be okay. Andy Reid today said that he's got a clean bill of health, which is frankly what I thought was going on. I think we'll learn more. He probably did have a hamstring strain at some point, but you guys might remember doctor of physical therapy Edwin Porras, who came on the show last year. He's over at fantasypoints.com. He mentioned that he knows a guy in the league on a medical staff, I believe. Actually, I don't know if he confirmed. I mean, I assume it's on the medical staff, but he confirmed that sometimes teams will put a guy on the injury report with a hamstring, or that's the example he gave. If there's just something going on and it's not actually a hamstring. So that was my hypothesis, that Toney was just being a maniac off the field, and that Brian Daboll didn't want to allow that personality into his culture that he was trying to establish in New York. We'll continue to learn more about that as weeks progress. But the point is, if Kadarius Toney is available on waivers this week, he is one of the rare midseason wide receiver pickups that can just be a fantasy wide receiver one. Will he be that every week? Can you bank on that? Probably not. But I really don't think it's unreasonable to, if he gets up to speed and if he keeps his head on straight, could he be a top 24 set it and forget it wide receiver? Yeah, he can. And can he be a top 12? Yes, he can. By the end of the year, it is completely realistic for you to add Kadarius Toney this week, and he is competing. He is competing with the top 12. So I would add him. And because there's not a lot of guys that have this kind of upside, especially at the wide receiver position in season. What does this mean? Sky Moore, probably not your year, bud. In Dynasty, I'd still be buying, but probably not this year. There is an outside chance that Toney, there is an outside chance that Toney actually is a bigger impediment to Juju. And the reason I say that is Juju is unable to do anything in the intermediate and deep areas of the field. His knee is bad. He is showing his age and his injuries. And he's not that old, but he's NFL old. He's been in the league for 5 years, and he might still be 25 years old, but he's been banged up. So if Toney is going to take on that short area run after catch role, could he eat into Juju Smith-Schuster's target share rather than Sky Moore? Yeah, he could. Juju is more established, so I think it's unlikely. I think that Sky Moore is the guy who probably gets bounced here. But I think that both Sky Moore and or Juju Smith-Schuster being relegated to a less reliable role are part of Kadarius Toney's potential range of outcomes. I think they're real probabilities. I don't know how high they are, but I think that both of those options are possible. Now, I will also say Mecole Hardman has kind of put it together in the downfield area of the field. So he might actually be bouncing Marquez Valdes-Scantling out of the way. I would add Mecole Hardman as well. The whole field might zig to Toney, as they should. And it would maybe be a good time to put in a backup claim for Mecole Hardman. I don't think Mecole Hardman's very good. I think he can run downfield and sometimes catch it. And that's what Marquez Valdes-Scantling can do. And in this offense, that can be fruitful. And if one of them is separating, it's worthwhile. As far as the running backs go, Isaiah Pacheco is probably the starter moving forward. He'll fight CEH in scoring position. It is possible, though, we see this time and time again, year after year. Hayden Winks coined the term post-bye rookie bump. It is possible that after this bye, head coach Andy Reid has created an environment for Isaiah Pacheco to take on a larger workload. They're going to let CEH go at the end of this year. So is it a time to buy Pacheco? Yeah, I think it's still a time to buy Pacheco. Jerick McKinnon is good PPR bench stash. As for the Chargers, Keenan Allen, I don't think he was practicing today. I believe they are on a short week. But the big news here is obviously Mike Williams, who's going to be out probably 5 weeks or longer. High ankle sprains are about 5 weeks, sometimes, maybe 6. Me, I've got the injury index up here. So we got quarterback, that is running back. And here we are, wide receiver, high ankle sprain data, 5.2 weeks average time missed. Fantasy production upon their return, negative 16.5%. Re-injury rate, 15.0%. If you can trade Mike Williams, I would. The high ankles are a problem, even when guys get back. Make that call on your own. But I don't expect Mike Williams to be back before week 15. Keenan Allen. Was Keenan Allen practicing? Looking that up right now. Of course, they don't have the injury report present, but Josh Palmer he's just going to walk into a hefty workload. I think basically regardless of what's going on with Keenan Allen, he's the number 2 in the offense. He is really not that exciting. Josh Palmer has not panned out to be the wide receiver that I had hoped that he would be. But here we go. We got the Allen did not practice on Monday. We'll know more about Allen's status later in the week when the Chargers release their injury report on Wednesday, but the veteran wide receiver made his return from hamstring, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he didn't feel good. He did not feel good when he got on the field last week. And so I think it was that he told the coach that he felt like he couldn't explode. So the game's on the 6th. So that is, the heck month am I looking at? That's okay. No, that is a Sunday game. So it's something to monitor. Hopefully he's good to go. It's been a long time. I mean, if Keenan Allen is actually good to play, that he's just getting double-digit targets, you could start him as a top 15 option, no problem. Josh Palmer, he had the concussion. That's right. He should be good to go this week. If he's not, that's a big problem. I'll probably have Palmer ranked. Yeah, I haven't actually inserted him in there. Oh no, here he is. I've got him at the back end of the wide receiver 3 tier. And I think that he'll be kind of bankable for that, but there are 6 teams that are on bye in week 19 or in week 9. So it's kind of tough to say with Palmer. DeAndre Carter is he's going to be worth a bench ad. I think in really deep leagues, he'll be the field stretcher, and they are playing Atlanta, who is down. I think they're starting 3 cornerbacks and their free safety. So DeAndre Carter could be I think a viable wide receiver 5. And I know that may not be that attractive, but like the guy is going to be their speed option. So he's worth an ad. Gerald Everett will be back, and I think that he's going to take on a big role as a possession receiver with Mike Williams out. You guys already know what you're doing with the running backs. Go get, Austin Eckler. He's an elite RB1. Isaiah Spiller probably has more standalone value as a replacement than Sony Michel does. Joshua Kelly is on injured reserve. Week 9, teams on bye: Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and San Francisco 49ers. There's not a whole lot to report on the Cleveland Browns as they are actually about to kick off in 45 minutes. I'm excited about Harrison Bryant. I think that he can be a tight end 1 for the duration of David Njoku's absence. I might blow up into my face, but it's important to take shots on guys that have a profile that could be promising for fantasy at the tight end position. So I would be adding him if you are in need of a tight end. I think David Bell is worth a speculative ad, but you can go back and listen, because all the analysis for Cleveland is still relevant that we talked about last Friday. Dallas Cowboys. So Tony Pollard, he rocked the world. I think that the Cowboys will try to push Ezekiel Elliott to return in week 10. He has a grade 2 MCL sprain, which should keep him out for 3 to 4 weeks. It could be longer. It probably so if he comes back, if Ezekiel Elliott comes back, then he in week 10, that will be his 1, 2, 3. It'd be too early. It'd be too early. It'd be at the very beginning of the 3rd week, or that's 1 full week too. And then maybe the guy's had a PCL issue. But here they're going to force him back in the lineup as soon as they can. What does that mean for Tony Pollard? Don't know. If he could sell him high, I probably would give it a shot. But Zeke could, if he comes back too early, he could suffer an in-game setback. He could be out for an extended period of time. So Pollard, like if you can sell him for an RB1, I'd say do it. But there it's potential. He has potential to have rest of season value in the event that the Dallas Cowboys keep Ezekiel Elliott or get Ezekiel Elliott back on the field. As far as the wide receivers go, CeeDee Lamb's a target hog. I don't think that there were any injury issues to report. Noah Brown. Noah Brown is a good player, but he just, I think it was that foot issue, and the foot, could keep him out for a little bit. We don't know what it is. The foot, surprisingly, is a big, it's got a lot of surface area, and if it's a midfoot sprain, so foot in the injury index, foot non-specific, 3.7 games, average missed, but like we don't know what it is. We don't have clarity on that. So could Noah Brown be out for a while? Yeah, he could. They could also try to bring him back after the bye. Michael Gallup is a bye, B-U-Y, regardless. James Washington, I think on a wide receiver needy team, you could go ahead and add. But regardless, it was really good to see Dak get back on the field. The guy made some plays both as a rusher and as a passer. He carried the ball 5 times for 34 yards. This was kind of some of the juice that's been missing from his game since he suffered that brutal lower leg injury. If he can keep that going, I think that he can find himself in the top 12, maybe probably back end, but find himself in the top 12 on a weekly basis. I think that covers it for the Dallas Cowboys. Denver Broncos. All I can say here is, so Wilson had his best game. Both of the running backs are involved, although I think that Melvin Gordon actually did manage to poach a goal line touchdown, which is great because Latavius Murray was kind of capitalizing on that or monopolizing that. You could try to buy the receivers, but it's a super shaky prospect, and I wouldn't do it unless you have a really good record. Greg Dulcich is as just a screaming buy. I think it was Scott Barrett who had him. Dulcich had the 3rd highest tight end yardage over the first 3 games of an NFL career, and it was Aaron Hernandez and Randy McMichael. The guy can play. He's had a couple busted coverage moments, but the guy can play, and I would absolutely, I would prefer to have Greg Dulcich over Harrison Bryant, if that tells you anything. New York Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson was a huge disappointment last week. I don't know why. He'd done a really good job of earning targets in the lead up to that, and he totally flopped. I don't know if it's a schematic thing, and if they want to be a ball distribution team moving forward, that would kind of surprise me because that's not really how Brian Daboll operated in Buffalo. I think I'm still optimistic on Wan'Dale and would probably be trying to buy him. I think you have this opportunity with the low performance in week 8 and a buy in week 9. But it's a bummer. Hopefully you guys did go add Darius Slayton. We talked about that last week. With Kadarius Toney out of town, Darius Slayton now has access to the Z receiver role. Dan Bellinger is supposed to return in 4 to 6 weeks. If you can afford it, I'd add him and put him on your injured reserve spot. Outside of that, you know what Saquon is and you know what Daniel Jones is. Pittsburgh Steelers are in meltdown mode. Let's see if they can get things right after the bye. But Kenny Pickett basically called out half the team, and then half the team went on Instagram and liked a photo of him getting sacked. So not great stuff going on there. He's not really relevant for fantasy purposes. Deontay Johnson is, I think, Deontay Johnson was actually one of the guys that liked the photo of Kenny Pickett getting sacked. So they're either going to fix that in a screaming way or they are not going to fix that in a screaming way. Deontay, you can buy in the volatility if you want to. I think I advise against that. George Pickens seems to be in Kenny Pickett's corner. I would roll with him. Pat Freiermuth is Pickett's guy. Chase Claypool, maybe in Dynasty. That's about it. Najee Harris is friggin' cooked. It is crazy. He looks so bad. Jaylen Warren, I know I was too high on him as a standalone value, but he is up there. He is the Alexander Madison type of primary bell cow backup. San Francisco 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, elite RB1. Brandon Ayuk can get the job done, especially when Debo is not there. But I think that the offense as a whole is in a really fun place right now. Last week, Ayuk went 6 of 6 for 81 yards. As we predicted, he did not get any rushing work. Jeff Wilson Jr., he is just a bench stash, and George Kittle got the job done. 3 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Hold on to him tight as an elite tight end 1. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a game manager, and I think that you can treat him as such. He's a good 2-quarterback league super flex start. Moving on to the teams that are actually live this week. So starting at the quarterback position, the top 2 guys, this one isn't really that hard. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I don't think we really need to break this down. The positive that I will say about the Bills that I didn't say last week was that Gabe Davis, I think, actually earned a season high 7 targets last week. And the one kind of question mark that we had with this offense is whether or not Gabe Davis was going to be able to increase his target rate. So yeah, looking at the data right now, he did. He only had 2 catches, 35 yards, but he did earn 7 targets, which his previous 2022 high was a pair of 6s in weeks 5 and 6. So that's a good sign for Gabe Davis. It makes me feel better about keeping him in the wide receiver 2 range. You already know what you're doing with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Isaiah McKenzie and Khalil Shakir were both really quiet. I think McKenzie, if I'm remembering correctly, McKenzie ended up having, I think it was one target, 1 reception, and I think it may have been a rushing touchdown. Yeah, anyway, he's a gadget guy. I have not parsed the route data for them, but I mean, he's still splitting time with Khalil Shakir. I think both of them should be stashed on benches. Dawson Knox, he got me. He scored a touchdown, and you can do worse than just adding guys who are in these elite offenses, even if they aren't all that great. That's just the nature of the tight end position. James Cook looks so good when he's running. He is part of the Jaylen Warren, Alexander Madison, primary bell cow backup group. Zach Moss is not going to be a problem for him if Devin Singletary were to miss time. Devin Singletary really only is getting featured in close games. So I would feel good about keeping James Robinson on benches, as I currently am. As far as the Patrick Mahomes thing, I mean, he's an elite quarterback 1. We already covered the wide receivers there. And they should pummel the Tennessee Titans. Travis Kelce's back to tight end 1, and we already covered the running backs. Kyler Murray. So the next 2 guys, Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. I believe that's right. Okay, so Philadelphia has the Thursday game. What does this mean for the entirety of these 2 squads? Kyler Murray, he got things going on the ground. DeAndre Hopkins, what they're doing, I wrote this up at the 33rd team, so you can go check that out for free there. But I parsed all of the slot and perimeter data, as well as the average depth of target. They're doing some fun things with DeAndre Hopkins. They're moving him into the slot. The rates are varying, but they're varying at a normal possession receiver rate, which is not what was happening previously. He was always glued to the perimeter. So that's good news there. Rondale Moore was back to being a slot heavy short area target, and he was killing it after the catch. So we love that. I think it is safe to put DeAndre Hopkins back in the fold as an elite wide receiver 1 this week, and I have Rondale Moore as a back end wide receiver 2. Again, he probably won't be there every week, but 6 teams are on bye, so we're feeling all right about that. Kyler just got the job done on the ground. As far as the running backs go, Darrell Williams was a problem, and so Eno Benjamin has to be reduced in excitement this week. James Conner might be back, he might not, but Darrell Williams is enough for us to just not feel great about Benjamin. Both of these guys, Benjamin is a borderline RB2, RB3. Darrell Williams is not getting enough work to start on his own. Keontae Ingram is just kind of a bench stash. Why do I have Kyler Murray ranked ahead of Jalen Hurts? I have him ranked ahead of Jalen Hurts because last week, the Philadelphia Eagles basically pulled their starters with like 10 minutes left in the game. It was a blowout, and I expect that to be the same again this week against the Houston Texans. Part of that was the short week. But part of it was this team having Super Bowl aspirations, and they know, unlike the Los Angeles Rams, that you need to pull your starters to the end of the game to protect them. So I think Gardner Minshew could get some 4th quarter action here. I think Jalen Hurts, I've got him ranked as the quarterback 4. So I'm not low on the guy, but I'm putting Kyler Murray in there because I think that against the Seattle Seahawks, Murray is going to be asked to play all damn day. The wide receivers, I mean, you're just starting A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith every single week. Same with Dallas Goedert, who I have ranked right now, drumroll please, as the tight end 2 on the week. The Seattle Seahawks, Houston Texans linebackers. Oh, and Zach Ertz. Yeah, Seattle Seahawks linebackers are as absolute bad as it gets. So you're feeling good about Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is my tight end 3. Dallas Goedert is my tight end 2. Houston Texans linebackers can't really do anything. I know they got some guy down there that people are excited about. He's not that good. And because no inside linebackers are that good in coverage. No, they aren't. And Dallas Goedert is that good. Miles Sanders should run wild here. Moving down to the next one. Next pair of guys, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens at New Orleans Saints, and Joe Burrow versus the Carolina Panthers. Lamar Jackson, he's kind of been up and down, but we're just keeping him in there as an elite wide receiver one. He's going to have to run more now that they likely returned Rashad Bateman too early. This is super brutal. So Rashad Bateman, foot injury, he's going to be out multiple weeks. Mark Andrews was on the injury report last week with a knee injury. He injured his shoulder in game, and then today, Coach John Harbaugh said that Mark Andrews is dealing with a shoulder and an ankle injury. So I hit up Jeff Mueller on Twitter, Dr. Physical Therapy Jeff Mueller. You can look us up and see the exchange. I've retweeted his thoughts here, but here's what concerns me with this. When there's ankle and knee confusion, the two ankle and knee injuries that oftentimes occur in conjunction with one another are high ankle sprains and MCL sprains. So if he's on the injury report with a knee last week, and because they were just trying to be sneaky, he might have had an MCL sprain. They let him play anyway, like idiots. And he may have also had a high ankle sprain. So Baltimore, I think that they might just be without Dallas Goedert, without Mark Andrews for some time. They have a bye in week 10, and then they get the Carolina Panthers in week 11. Not unreasonable to think that Mark Andrews is out for an extended period of time. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. This coaching staff, this medical staff has been super suspect. So you need to go at Isaiah Likely, who I have ranked as the tight end 6 on the week. Yes, I know they have some good coverage linebackers, but they don't have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson anymore, and coverage linebackers don't matter really all that much. As far as the backfield goes, they're saying that Gus Edwards had a minor hamstring strain. I expect him to miss. But until they tell us, they might push him back out there, and if they do, he'll be ranked as kind of a floor play RB3, Kenyon Drake an RB4. Moving on down to Joe Burrow. So Joe, we're going to see what this passing offense looks like without Jamar Chase, who's expected to miss the next 3 to 4 weeks. I recommend everybody go check out the podcast Initial Evaluation by Adam Hutchison. He talked about this. Jamar Chase suffered a hairline fracture in his hip and a labral tear in the hip. I know you're thinking labrum isn't that shoulder. No, here's the thing. All ball joints have a cartilage ring around that keep the ball in the joint. And so all of your joints, as far as I know, have labrums in them. So he had some sort of what seems like it happened was the integrity of the joint was sort of tested with the ball maybe wanting to pop out of there. It didn't, but it did mess up the labrum and cause a hairline fracture. So he's probably out 3 to 4 weeks. They chose not to put him on injured reserve, which is great. What does that mean for the rest of the pass catchers? T. Higgins is an elite wide receiver 1 for the duration. Tyler Boyd is a wide receiver 2. Hayden Hurst is a tight end 1. Joe Mixon, probably not going to get any more pass catching work. Maybe Samaje Perine does, but Joe Burrow, I'm not actually moving him down in my ranks at all. He can still distribute the ball to exceptional pass catchers. They're going up against Cleveland, who was just decimated by injury in a half an hour. And then they're playing the Carolina Panthers, whose secondary is coming back to full health, but they're only so good. And Joe Burrow is very good. So is that Cincinnati Bengals offense. So I'm not worried about that offense as a whole. Next, I'm going to say trio of passers and teams. Geno Smith, Seattle Seahawks at Arizona Cardinals, Tua Tagovailoa at Chicago Bears, and Justin Fields versus Miami. Geno, so they were kind of inefficient, the Seahawks wide receivers, but they're just going to keep cooking. DK Metcalf didn't have any setbacks with his patellar tendon, but he caught 6 of 10 passes, I think, for 50-some yards and a touchdown. Tyler Lockett lost the fumble. That might actually create a buy low window. I'm going to lean into these guys, though. The Arizona Cardinals secondary is very bad. Marco Wilson, Trayvon Mullen, and Byron Murphy Jr. They're really, really bad. It's kind of shocking how bad that whole trio is. So it's just fire the cannons here. Isaiah Simmons is not a good coverage linebacker. He made a play against New Orleans, but he's really not that good. So if you're desperate in a tight end premium, maybe you can start Noah Fant. I'm not going any more than that though. Kenneth Walker maintained a pretty decent route participation rate. If I recall correctly, I think Levitan was tweeting this out. He led the team in routes run, or led the backfield in routes run. That is fantastic. Kenneth Walker, elite RB1. Tua Tagovailoa, locked in quarterback one. The out here against Chicago is that Chicago does not run a lot of plays. They kill the clock, so it can hurt other passing offenses, but it's so well schemed. They're so good after the catch. I just wouldn't worry about it. So, and like they have a decent front seven. The secondary is made of really bad players. I think they can just roast them on efficiency. So Tua, Waddle, Tyreek, you're starting them all as respective top 12 options at their positions. Mike Gesicki is a lot harder for me to get on board with this week because I don't think this is going to be a terribly high totaled game. He's not a good fit for the scheme. He can get involved when games pop off like they did last week. I think that the trio, the wide receiver quarterback trio, I think they can get the job done here, but I'm not going to go bank on a jumbo wide receiver who's not part of the scheme, playing against like Eddie Jackson some of the time. It's not great. And I know Roquan Smith just got traded. That might help him. Roquan Smith sucks. He's a run defender. He is totally flopped as a pass coverage guy. And his profile was that of a pass coverage linebacker, but it turns out he's really bad. So yeah, I'm not seeing this as being a needle mover for Gesicki. So Gesicki's a tight end too this week. As far as the running backs go, it's good front seven. I'm not actually that optimistic about either of the Miami running backs this week. I have got, what do I have? Chase Edmonds is a low-end RB4, and Raheem Mostert is a low-end RB2, and I might move them around a little bit. There's some guys right behind him, Singletary, AJ Dillon, Pacheco. I might fiddle with that. So I'm not optimistic there. And lastly, of this trio, Justin Fields, dude is just cooking. They finally got the offense going, and it's fantastic. It's good for everybody involved, especially him. I'm actually, for the first time in quite a while, ranking Darnell Mooney as a fantasy football wide receiver. I guess just only a wide receiver 3. I kind of want to get him into the wide receiver 2 ranks. He's at the wide receiver 29, highest it's been in a long time. We'll see. I might tinker. I'm not going to put him past. I don't think I'm going to put him past wide receiver 22. But he's in that borderline. He's in that fringe range. Miami secondary is really awful, and Xavier Howard is, my legs are very badly broken. Khalil Herbert is the RB1 there, and he is a running back 2 this week, and you should not even be thinking of Cole Kmet. I have Khalil Herbert ranked as the running back 19 and Dave Montgomery ranked as the running back 31. Next few passers. And this is where we start getting into the range of pocket passers who can kind of be ranked interchangeably, but I've got them how I want them right now. Andy Dalton, New Orleans Saints versus Baltimore Ravens. Kirk Cousins, Minnesota Vikings at Washington Commanders. Jared Goff, Detroit Lions versus Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers at Detroit. Dalton can distribute the ball well. He's functionally getting the ball to Alvin Kamara. It is fantastic. Distribute a little bit too much to my liking for Chris Olave last week, but I'm holding steady here. The Washington secondary is sort of as good as it's not. Rashad Wildgoose, I'm still not convinced, but the guy could be a good NFL player. The perimeter corners leave some to be desired. So I'm sticking with Chris Olave as he's my wide receiver 10 on the week. Now I might be moving him around there. So I've got a little teaser here. the wide receiver 8 through 14 range goes as follows: Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett. We will get to more of these guys, but the Baltimore Ravens secondary is very bad. They've invested heavily in it, but it has not performed well. The addition of Roquan Smith doesn't do anything for Chris Olave, and Chris Olave is just a straight baller. So I'm still rolling with him as a wide receiver 1. I'm not going to feature any of the other New Orleans Saints wide receivers in a prominent position in my rankings. What I do want you to do, though, is I mentioned this earlier, go read my article at the 33rd team that came out Monday morning, titled 5 Fantasy Football Takeaways from Week 8. I broke down Taysom Hill's usage there. Taysom Hill is super interesting. Alvin Kamara is like my RB2. But anyway, Mark Ingram suffered a grade 2 MCL sprain. He's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. If Taysom Hill is on your waiver wire, you need to go at him right now. And actually, I'm just gonna pull this up. What we have seen so far with Taysom Hill is through the first 4 weeks of the season, they really only used him as a rushing weapon. So he didn't throw any passes. He ran 3.7 routes per game, and he was averaging 0.3 receptions, 0.3 targets per game, and 0.7 receiving yards per game. From a rushing perspective, 4 rushes attempts per game, 38.7 rushing yards per game, and 0.7 rushing touchdowns. Good for 8.3 PPR points per week. Weeks 5 through 8, 2 pass attempts per game, 6.8 routes run, half a catch, 0.8 targets, good for 7 yards and 0.3 touchdowns. From a rushing, the rushing side of things, this is where it starts to get a little more interesting. 6.8 rushes per week, 55.3 rushing yards per week, with 0.8 rushing touchdowns per week. So he's averaging 55 rushing yards and a rush, or 0.8 rushing touchdowns. We're almost at a full rushing touchdown per week, plus the receiving work, plus the passing game work. That adds up to 14.3 PPR points per game. Again, go read this. There's more information in this article. So go, I'm trying to send the traffic there. Go read this article for me. But with Mark Ingram out, all I see is Taysom Hill approaching 10 carries a game. It might be, maybe it's 8.5, maybe it's 9, but like the team already, the first month of the season, they did what they did, and then they just cranked his usage up. I have Taysom Hill ranked for week 9 as my tight end 5. And I might need to move him up 1 or 2 spots. His usage is so unique, and it gives you such a phenomenal ceiling. Whereas, if you get 2 points from Taysom Hill versus 2 points from Robert Tonyan, do you care? Because one of these guys has multi-touchdown upside. One of them really doesn't. So I like Taysom Hill a lot for fantasy football purposes. Kirk Cousins. So going up against, wait a second. When did I mention? Yeah, Rashad Wildgoose. I for whatever reason I mentioned him with the Baltimore section, but he's the slot cornerback for the Washington Commanders. The Andy Dalton and New Orleans Saints are playing Baltimore. Everything still stands there. Kirk Cousins. I think they'll kind of just pick Washington apart. Dalvin Cook saw a healthy increase in his passing game usage. He did get a touchdown stolen from him by Alexander Mattison, but that's kind of just the name of the game. I have Justin Jefferson, though. His volatility has not been quite as high as I would have liked last couple of weeks. I've got him as a mid-range wide receiver 1. That will be subject to change as we learn more about Adam Thielen's knee injury. So Adam Hutchinson on initial eval, he broke this down. It does look like it is a knee contusion, which means it's just going to be a pain tolerance thing, but it could be a different issue. We just need to continue to monitor what the practice reports are, because if it is a bigger issue, then, oh my goodness, there goes Justin Jefferson's primary target competition, in which case I feel great about his volatility and he should be good to go. Now, again, I'm still ranking Justin Jefferson as a a mid-range wide receiver one. I'm not like I'm not crap talking the guy, but we need to pay attention to Adam Thielen's injury. KJ Osborne would probably rise to relevancy if Adam Thielen were out, but Irv Smith Jr. also suffered an injury, and I believe he's expected to miss a few weeks. So that's kind of a big deal. Just monitor the Vikings news, continue to come back and just examine whatever it is I'm putting out about the Vikings, because this situation is subject to change. Jared Goff, Detroit Lions versus Green Bay Packers. Jared Goff's track record against Green Bay has been great. You can go look at his games, his 2 games last year. He lit them up, and I don't think there's any reason to expect otherwise. So lock him in. He's a back-end quarterback one. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a mid to high wide receiver one. Josh Reynolds, DFS dart throw as the field stretcher there. TJ Hawkinson should just rock the house like he did last week, which right on. I hope you read that PFF DFS cheat sheet piece I put out. As far as the running backs go, I'm not going to read through all the data again. Probably wouldn't like that over there, but go check out my 5 takeaways from the 30-13, because I broke down what Jamal Williams is doing, what his usage is this year in that article. As a teaser, I have DeAndre Swift ranked as the RB7 this week, and I have Jamal Williams ranked as the running back 16. I'm very high on both of these guys. Swift, he's dominating passing down work, but Jamal Williams has a serious scoring position role in the green zone, and his carries. So what I did was I broke down their 4 games of them playing together, and Jamal Williams, they are leaning on him in the run game. So we like that. I think Aaron Rodgers, you can make the argument that he needs to be moved up. It's just the wide receiver situation is so volatile. So it's difficult to trust him as anything more than this borderline quarterback 1, quarterback 2. The Detroit Lions are the worst dang defense in the NFL. So would I be surprised if Rodgers finishes up there with Andy Dalton at quarterback 10 or even higher? No, I wouldn't at all. But we have to be kind of Bayesian here. David Bakhtiari, he's playing on, a destroyed knee, and Elgton Jenkins was right tackle. Elgton Jenkins was reduced to, he was out last week. He was ruled out. So it's just kind of a rough situation. Now, can the pass rush in Detroit mess things up? Aiden Hutchinson can make his presence felt, but it's not a great defense as a whole. They also just fired their secondary coordinator, their defensive backs coach. So they don't love the defensive situation they got going on there. Running backs, or Toney at dart throw tight end 1, tight end 2. It's nothing special, but it's a game that they should be able to score. So if you're down on your luck, he's a plug and play kind of option. I have Toney as the tight end 11 this week. Running backs, I'm actually expecting a bounce back here from AJ Dillon, as the Detroit Lions are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Aaron Jones is cooking. He's a back end running back 1, but I think I am going to actually have AJ Dillon as a running back 2 this week. Right now, he's on the borderline. He's at RB 23. All right, now we're going to start to have some fun here. Quarterback 14, Marcus Mariota, Atlanta Falcons versus Los Angeles Chargers. Quarterback 15, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville versus Las Vegas Raiders. Quarterback 16, Taylor Heineke, Washington Commanders versus Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback 17, Derek Carr, Las Vegas Raiders at Jacksonville Jaguars. And quarterback 18, PJ Walker, Carolina Panthers at Cincinnati Bengals. Let's break down this group. Marcus Mariota, what I like about him here in this matchup specifically are 2 things. 1, Los Angeles cornerback, number 1 cornerback, J.C. Jackson, he's out for the year. Don't like that for J.C. Jackson. That sucks. It was a patellar tendon strain. He already had the messed up foot. That's or not strain. It was a rupture, and he had the messed up foot. It's a huge bummer. Marcus Mariota can pick on that side of the field, though, which is good for Drake London. Where do I have Drake London right now? That is a really good question. Got him as a borderline wide receiver 3/4, and I think that live I am going to move him solidly into the high-end wide receiver 3 group. The volume is still a huge friggin' bummer, but without J.C. Jackson, I think he can be efficient. Monitor that situation. Maybe I'll move that one up. You guys know I love Drake London. But here's kind of the coup de grace here. Los Angeles Chargers have the worst run defense in the NFL. Marcus Mariota, I think, can cruise for 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, maybe it's 75 yards and a touchdown, but you get the point. This defense in particular should facilitate a high rushing output for Marcus Mariota. So I've got him as a high-end quarterback too. I think he's an excellent streamer, and I won't be surprised if he finishes inside the positions top 12. Kyle Pitts, potato here. He had a great week last week. We love to see that. Maybe they'll try to continue building on it. But Arthur Smith, Dwayne McFarland was tweeting about this. He's still maintaining a really low pass rate. The Chargers have Derwin James. That's frightening for Kyle Pitts. They also play a lot of zone, and tight ends eat against zone. The results against the Chargers kind of fluctuate. Sometimes with talent of the tight end, sometimes not. You can go look at who they played this year. Like, they kind of held Darren Waller in check, but Travis Kelce did his thing against them. The Seattle tight ends kind of had a good day against it. You just go look at it. I'm sticking with Kyle Pitts. And for all of the reasons that I like Taysom Hill, I really should have been more bullish on Kyle Pitts last week, because he is still one of these guys that can get you this crazy, excellent result. And there are bumps in the road, but does someone like friggin' Robert Tonyan have Kyle Pitts' ceiling? No, he doesn't. And okay, sure, he could catch 2 touchdowns, whatever. But we're talking talent. Like Kyle Pitts, he needs to be back in the tight end one marks. And I have Kyle Pitts as the tight end 7 this week. The running back situation. We talked about this on the show last week, and it was kind of cool that it hit. Tyler Algier, he'd been running routes like an MFer for weeks, and he had not received a single target. Well, it came together last week. He caught all 3 targets for 46 yards and a receiving touchdown. Cordell Patterson is able to come off injured reserve this week, though, so we don't know how that's going to go. If Cordell Patterson is not active, then I would feel very good about Tyler Algier against the league's bottom rung run defense. I have him as a mid-range running back 2 right now, and I'm being a little bit conservative there, just with the possibility that Cordell Patterson comes back, and then we have to monitor the situation to figure out how they're going to be used. But he's my RB17. Once we get confirmation that Cordell Patterson is not going to play, I could see Tyler Algier moving into the RB 12 or 13 discussion. But it's difficult because although there are few teams playing this week, there's only 26 teams playing this week, the running backs, the elite guys, do have some pretty awesome matchups. So I'd feel really great about starting Tyler Algier, but this is just kind of a unique week where it's difficult to get him kind of where I want to get him in the ranks. Caleb Huntley continues to compile rushing yards on a high volume of carries. He's not very efficient. He doesn't get any passing game work. If CPAT is inactive, you could start Caleb Huntley as maybe a running back 3. Maybe. Next one on the list, Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence is still figuring his stuff out. Sometimes he throws the ball deep. Yeah, he's still figuring out how he wants to play the position. He can rush. He's a very good scrambler. He hasn't really been accessing that part of his upside as of late. He's coming off a game against, overseas against the Denver Broncos defense. I give him a pass for that, but I did not rank him highly accordingly. Next 2 games are against Las Vegas and Kansas City. Conservatively, I have Trevor Lawrence ranked as the quarterback 15. This is a good spot. If he does well here, I will be more bullish on him next week. Las Vegas' secondary has had some injuries. Cornerback Nate Hobbs, who was in the slot, and they put him on the perimeter, blah, blah, blah. He's on injured reserve. Should double check that. I think he's been on there for 3 weeks now. He was a broken hand. He was a broken thumb. Okay, no, 2 weeks. So he's not coming back. He went on 2 weeks ago. So I like Christian Kirk for a bounce back performance in this one. I have him as a wide receiver 2. There are some guys who I like a little bit more, like Rondale Moore at Seattle versus Seattle. I have him one spot ahead of Christian Kirk right now. I'm going to ponder that, but that's where I've got him. I have Tyler Boyd ahead of Christian Kirk too. Zay Jones, he's just a DFS play. Marvin, don't even think about it. Evan Ingram is a fine tight end streamer. And it's Travis Etienne season. This is, I hope that you guys were able to buy low. I know I've been saying that, but I was so high on the guy. I had him, I think it's my like RB10 entering the year. It took a couple quiet weeks, but that is paying off now. So be excited again for this one. Las Vegas front seven is nothing to fear. And JaMychal Hasty is worthy of a bench stash. Hasty he's not bad, and he's getting decent rotational usage. Quarterback 16, Taylor Heineke. Heineke, he's not that strong of a thrower, but he's fearless. He has that early career Russell Wilson mentality, the Brett Favre mentality. I think, Minnesota Vikings secondary is awfully bad. I think that Taylor Heineke can be started confidently in super flex formats. I don't want to recommend him in single QB, but the matchup is there for a fruitful day. Terry McLaurin had a fantastic outing last week. And again, this is, it's kind of a difficult situation, as mentioned with the running backs. A lot of the teams that are on bye, I think, actually have just really good defenses. New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. So some of these teams just have these like smash spots. So I want to get Terry McLaurin higher than wide receiver 18, but I'm just having a tough time doing that. But I like him a lot. I think you should start him this week. Curtis Samuel is a wide receiver 3. Terry is kind of alpha-ing the situation. Can't trust Logan Thomas. Antonio Gibson is now like a full-on bell cow. And I more than trusting Antonio Gibson, I've got him as a running back too. But he's basically the last of the decent guys. You just really can't trust Brian Edwards and JD McKissick. And it's a huge bummer that this was maybe inevitable part of the range of outcomes for Brian Robinson. I hope he continues to rehab and can get things going again. JD McKissick is getting old. Derek Carr. I think that last week creates a buy low opportunity for Devontae Adams. People didn't seem to understand how ill he was. I wrote about that actually over at Pro Football Focus as to why Jalen Waddle was an excellent leverage play off of both Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. Go check that out. I think that part's free. So go check that out if you want to read it. But Devontae Adams is super sick. Half the team was sick. Kind of sounds like they all had COVID, but they're not calling it that. If people are afraid of the narrative around the Las Vegas Raiders, I'd be trying to buy him. Darren Waller's hamstring, is injured. It's not it definitely is injured, but he hasn't really been doing stuff even when he was healthy, which is a huge bummer. Unfortunately, Jacksonville, I'm blanking on his name, but their slot corner. I might have to circle back to that. But anyway, so I have Devontae Adams as a wide receiver 1. I am lower on Hunter Renfrow than I am Mac Hollins, because Mac Hollins has been able to get loose. Tyson Campbell is a very good cornerback, a perimeter cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I expect Shaq Griffin, I think he might be on injured reserve, but I expect him to be out regardless this week. So that's going to open up the deep shots for Mac Hollins. So I have him ranked ahead of Hunter Renfrow. Foster Moreau, I am high on. Actually, this might be impacting Hunter Renfrow in my ranking more than anything else. Foster Moreau gets to go up against Devin Lloyd. I've talked a lot about how bad Devin Lloyd is. It's a good matchup. So I've actually got Foster Moreau ranked as a tight end 1 this week. He's back in tight end 1, but I do have him as my tight end 10. PJ Walker is playing great. He's fearless. He's throwing the ball downfield. He's forgetting when he makes mistakes. He is, he's the same as Sam Ellinger. He's slow. He's got a soft arm, but he's still running a lot, and he is throwing deep. And so for that reason, I have him as a mid-range quarterback too. And I'm talking about him like he's climbing Mount Everest. Cleared 300 passing yards, rushed for 20 yards. He's a 2 QB starter. Cincinnati offers really stiff competition in Chidobe Awuzie. He might shadow DJ Moore. And so for that reason, I have DJ Moore as the wide receiver 12. I'd probably have him higher in a softer matchup. It just might be a little bit difficult to thread the ball in there. But maybe if things plummet this week, which I don't think they'll plummet, but if he can't replicate what he did against Atlanta, maybe it's a buy low opportunity. After that, we have the Atlanta Falcons, the Baltimore Ravens, and we like those matchups a lot. Then it's Denver, then it's bye week. It's a little tough. But yeah, DJ Moore, he's back in wide receiver 1. As far as the wide receivers go, Terrace Marshall has been doing fun stuff. I don't recommend trusting him. I don't recommend trusting Tommy Tremble. Donta Foreman crushed it last week. Good for him. I think that he has won the starting running back job over Chuba Hubbard, and I didn't expect him to, but he did. Cincinnati's front seven is one that you're going to need to monitor during the week. They have suffered a pair of injuries. Both defensive tackles have been injured. Don't know what their status is what their status will be at the end of the week. So monitor the Cincinnati Bengals injury report to find out if Donta Foreman is going to have, help finding this excellent ceiling again. Their inside linebacker starter, Logan Wilson, not that good, was injured. Believe he started last week. He's, playing less than 100%. A big body guy like Foreman might be able to knock him around a little bit. So I have Donta Foreman as the running back 18 this week. So on either side of him, I've got Jamal Williams, Algier, Foreman, Khalil Herbert, Antonio Gibson. Tom Brady. So here's now we'll cover the rest. This is where there is volatility that could be good, but I think will probably be bad. Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, they've got defensive players, arguing on the sidelines. It's not a good situation in Los Angeles, but it's really hard to trust Tom Brady because the interior of their offensive line, I think it is getting healthier, but it's been really banged up. Like they lost multiple centers. I think they lost both of their guards. One of them might be back, but it's not a great situation there. And they're going up against Aaron Donald. And Brady's kryptonite, as with, I think this gets overblown a little bit because like all quarterbacks struggle when you're able to get pressure with 4, but pressure up the middle has really been a problem for him. I think Aaron Donald can kind of just take over this game. So I'm not high on Tom Brady. I'm still going to put both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the top 15. I have Mike Evans as a wide receiver 13 and Chris Godwin as a wide receiver 15. If they get things turned around, we could find them in the top 12 easily once again. But it's not a great situation. Chris Godwin's probably going to have to go up against Jalen Ramsey. I might move Godwin behind Jacoby Myers and Terry McLaurin. And we'll get to Myers in a little bit. As far as the tight end, Cade Otton, he's a rookie tight end. The path is there, but it's really hard to trust that guy. So he is a tight end 2-ish, middling. Leonard Fournette kind of goes as the offense goes, and that's oftentimes the case that the run game goes as the passing game goes. It's going to be tough sledding here. So I've got Lenny as the running back 15, and it's basically just like it's kind of a legacy ranking. I can talk myself into putting Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier, and even Donta Foreman ahead of him. I think you still start Fournette as a running back too, but not great. You need to be clinging tight to Rachaad White. Malik Willis, an insane outing. He attempted 10 passes. He completed 6 of them for 55 yards. He rushed the ball 5 times and only gained 12 yards. That's astonishing to me against Houston. I think that ultimately what happened was Vrabel went, we can win this game just by killing the clock with Henry. And I thought that maybe what they would want to do is be creative and fight, and they didn't. They wanted to play it as safe as possible and get a win, and I get it. That makes sense. So that's what happened. They're going to play Kansas City this week. I think Ryan Tannehill also got sick. I don't know. I mean, it could be that he has a high ankle sprain and they just made it up and said he was sick. We don't know who's going to start, but this is where I have Malik Willis right now. You can't start any of the pass catchers. Robert Woods, if Tannehill comes back, Jesus. I mean, like, yeah, I've got Woods as a wide receiver 4, and I don't even like that. Their perimeter corners are not that great. Slot cornerback L'Jarius Sneed is really good in the short game, but it's tough to trust Woods here, especially if Willis is playing. As far as the tight ends go, Chigozie Okonkwo is the guy for is the guy for Dynasty. That's it. That's the only thing I'm giving you for tight. Like, just ignore the tight ends outside of that. Derrick Henry, elite. Running back 1, Dontrell Hilliard, you should have bench stashed. On to the next one. Matthew Stafford. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've had a lot of defensive injuries. You know, they lost Shaq Barrett to the year. I think it was a torn Achilles. They've had cornerback injuries, but Cooper Kupp suffered an ankle sprain. And Sean McVay is going way out of his way to talk about how it's not going to be an issue. They expect him to play. It was a stupid play. They had him on the field. They was blown out, and they had him on the field with like a minute left. It was so dumb. He should have been on the bench. Again, this is a guy who Adam Hutchinson talked about on initial eval. So go listen to him, because he can give you the what happens if he starts this week, what happens long term, blah blah blah. So go listen to our guy Adam, because he's brilliant and he busts his ass for this. So what do I think is going to happen? I think that they'll play Cooper Kupp. I think that he'll be a fantasy wide receiver 1. I think that they might be a little bit smarter if the game gets lopsided one way or another. But I've got Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 11 this week, and that's the lowest ranking thus far. We'll continue to monitor. I mean, if he's practicing in full on Thursday, then I'm not going to worry about this, and he'll go straight back up to the top. But if he's like DNP limited, like, yeah, he'll still be a wide receiver 1, but he's not going to be the world-altering guy that he was. Van Jefferson should be bench stashed. Allen Robinson, he could find value if Van Jefferson is stretching the field, but you don't know until like we see Jefferson actually stretch the field. He didn't really do a whole lot last week. So, if you want to cut Allen Robinson, go for it. Here's the thing with that. Tyler Higbee suffered a neck injury. We don't know what it is. Adam talked about this, so go listen to it there. It seems like it might be a multi-week thing, but it might not be. Could be a strain, could be a stinger. Both carry their pluses and minuses. If Tyler Higbee is out, I expect Jacob Harris, I think, to be the starter. I wouldn't add him on waivers. Robinson could be the beneficiary as the intermediate area guy if Tyler Higbee were to miss time. And that's significant because Tyler Higbee was getting like 9 targets a week. As far as the running backs go, Ronnie Rivers was the starter. He was crazy inefficient. And this is a situation that I also broke down to the 33rd team. So go read about it there. Because I broke down Ronnie Rivers. I broke down Kyron Williams' college production over the last 2 years. And I talked about Rivers this week. Rivers was not very good. He was a bad rusher, and he was he caught all of the passes, and he was mediocre with his yardage efficiency passing. So they started Rivers because of the fact that Cam Akers is done there, and they're so underwhelmed by Darrell Henderson Jr. that they just threw a dart at something. If Kyron Williams is not active, then I think that Rivers and Darrell Henderson will just split time. But I think Kyron Williams, if he's active, I think they're going to load the dude up. Now, he's like 5'9", 200 pounds. He's a really good pass catcher. He's a decent rusher. But they're not asking Kyron Williams to tote the rock for a full season. They're asking him to try to do whatever the hell he can to get them through week 9 through 17. And if they get into the playoffs, whatever. But it's like Kyron Williams is not going to be, he's not going to be a long-term asset. So if you get him in Dynasty, I would try to sell him because he's not built for longevity. The ship chasing guys were laughing about him because his playing style is kind of similar to Leonard Fournette. And they made the point that Leonard Fournette is huge and Kyron Williams is small. And basically what makes Leonard Fournette's style work of bulldozing guys and definitely catching passes is basically his size. So he's like, small and effectual Fournette, but he's fresh. He hasn't played all year because of the high ankle sprain in the preseason. And that's enough time, I think, that he can come back and be good to go. But I think that Kyron Williams will be a capable dual threat. He could probably end up starting, on 8 teams this year right now, whatever. The workload will be there. He's got some juice because he's fresh. So go add Kyron Williams. I wouldn't add Ronnie Rivers in redraft. Like if you're crazy desperate, you could do it, but I'm not high on him, especially going against the Tampa Bay front seven. And I don't think that it's going to take, Kyron Williams, if he's not back this week, I would be shocked if he doesn't return in week 10. I expect him to return this week, but if he's not, then it's for sure week 10. So go get yourself Kyron Williams, stash him if you can. Like Kyron Williams applies to everyone as a good ad. Ronnie Rivers, maybe if you're a winner, if you're like in second or third, and you can just add him and put him on the bench and see how things shake out. Sam Ehlinger didn't do shit, and he's not going to do shit against the New England Patriots. It's a huge, big old bummer. Yeah, I don't think you can really start him. He carried the ball 6 times for 15 yards and threw for 201 scoreless yards. I don't know what's going on. I mean, get Swag Kelly in there. It's a weird situation. I mean, I think they've got Foles. Like I don't know why Foles isn't in there, but anyway, they're going against New England, and so they're facing one of the best cornerback duos in the league. It's just if Jonathan Jones is good to go, but regardless, they're going to scheme the hell out of this, and it's going to suck for Indianapolis. Michael Pittman Jr., I think, is a hold in Dynasty, and I think that he's a sell if you can in redraft right now. Going to be hard for him to turn things around. I mean, if you can sell him right now in Dynasty as like an elite wide receiver one, then you should do it. Because we don't know what the next year is going to bring. Frank Reich might be out. He might be out of the job. We don't know. But I don't love the look of this. So it's New England, Vegas, great. Las Vegas, we love that in week 10. Maybe that's how you sell them. But then it's Philadelphia, that sucks. Pittsburgh, okay, that's good. And then Dallas, that sucks. Then bye Pittsburgh, Chargers, New York Giants. So I don't love things for Pittman. I've got him as a back-end wide receiver 2 right now. Alec Pierce continues to pick up chunk gains. He's a must-own in Dynasty, must-roster in Dynasty. Redraft PPR formats, yeah. But, he's a wide receiver 3 or 4 for me right now. We're waiting on some injury info to finalize that. Tight ends, ignore them. Kylan Granson is, the man of the week last week, and it'll be somebody else this week. Jonathan Taylor suffered an ankle sprain. Looks like it's an inversion ankle sprain. Adam did break this down in his podcast, so I would just go listen to everything that he has to say. He thinks he's going to play, and he thinks he's going to deal with it for weeks. That's not great. His yards per carry dropped after he suffered the injury. I think it's a re-aggravation. He suffered the injury in game. His yards per carry just like dropped by a yard or something. Adam breaks it down in that podcast, but it's not a great situation. Average missed time for inversion ankle sprains is 1.7, but the fact he was able to come back in tells us he's probably going to be able to keep playing. Sometimes swelling can become a factor after the game though. So I would keep Nyheim Hines rostered, and I would keep Deion Jackson rostered too. Indianapolis. So I've got Jonathan Taylor as a high end running back 2. I've got Naheem Hines as a running back 3, and I've got Deion Jackson as an RB5. Davis Mills. The relevant players in this game are Nico Collins if he's healthy. Damian Pierce was getting more passing down work, which was fantastic. That moves him up the ranks. He's a running back 1 right now. I would be buying Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks is not very good anymore. He doesn't look very good anymore. And he's the subject of trade talks. I think the deadline's tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I would be adding Nico Collins if I can. That's it for Houston. Bailey Zappi. I've got Bailey Zappi ranked as the quarterback 24 and Mac Jones is the quarterback 25 because Mac Jones just looks like he's lost his mind. Young guys who are promising, sometimes stuff can get in their head, and we'll just have to see how it shakes out. We got Indianapolis this week. It's so-so matchup. Then they go on bye. So it's really rough here. I'd be picking up Bailey Zappi in Dynasty. That's about it. But the one thing that has remained consistent, and I broke this down in the 5 takeaways article at the 33rd team, Jacoby Myers is earning targets and cruising on a yardage per out run rate like an MFer. It is super fun to see. He's just a friggin' baller. He's not showing up as a big time season long scorer because he had a knee injury in the preseason. It messed with him in week 1 and week 2, and then it caused him to miss week 3 and week 4. He has been on a tear since then. He scored 3 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. He had 2 career touchdowns over the previous 3 seasons. The guy is putting it all together. He is Jacoby Myers is a fantasy wide receiver 2, and he's got top 12 upside, and it's fun because he's succeeding even with this quarterback situation. So love that. Tyquan Thornton, you got to have him on your roster, at least as a bench stash. Devontae Park, there's some injuries going on with the rest of that group, but those are the 2 guys that you want there. I probably not starting Tyquan Thornton. I'm not starting the tight ends. Things are too weird at the quarterback position. Maybe if Bailey Zappi comes in, you can start Hunter Henry. And then Ramondre Stevenson has taken a hold of this backfield, and he's not letting go. He's a running back 1. I've got him as a running back 9 this week. Shaq Leonard, maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't. Whatever. Ramondre, the thing with Ramondre, he's running routes and he is commanding targets. It has been really fun to watch. Over the last 2 games, 15 total targets, 8 and 7. It's like, this is Ramondre's season. I compared him maybe as a potential like Shane Vereen type of producer, and he might kind of even be exceeding that. He's a baller. Damian Harris, I have as a running back 3 this week. Last but not least, Zach Wilson. The team reaffirmed today that he's the starter rest of season. So you can go ahead and try to sell him in Dynasty, and you shouldn't have him rostered in season long because, my God. But this week against the Buffalo Bills, he's just going to get thrashed. It's going to be really, really awful. Positives from last week, though. Garrett Wilson had a really good outing, and so that's super neat. I think that you could start Garrett Wilson as a fantasy football wide receiver 4, high-end wide receiver 4, just because of the nature of the position and his talent. He is promising volatile upside, but obviously it's a really tough matchup. But here's the thing: Elijah Moore is outspokenly angry towards Zach Wilson right now. He was asked in the locker room something like, "What is your chemistry?" And he said, "I don't know. I'm not getting thrown the ball." And then he kind of laughed angrily and reiterated that. So you can go find the clip. But Elijah Moore, I didn't think he was going to get traded in season. Now I kind of wonder if he is going to get traded today. Probably not. I mean, they need to try to fix the situation. But Elijah Moore, you should probably overpay for in Dynasty. As far as the rest of the group, I think Corey Davis might be back to day-to-day, but I'm not paying attention to any of the wide receivers. Tyler Conklin, he came back into our lives. Buffalo, they have so one of their safeties, Jordan Poyer, suffered an elbow injury. He's going to go get an MRI. Actually, it's supposed to be today. So that's not great, right? I mean, maybe he's able to go. I don't think he will be, but he's getting an MRI because it's banged up. Micah Hyde has not been playing. He's been on injured reserve, I believe, because he had that freaky neck injury. He is, I guess, at the end of that time period. But the point is, I think that Tyler Conklin is a viable streaming play this week, given the situation with the two safeties likely being out. And then as far as the running back goes, James Robinson was sort of annoyingly there. He got, I think, 5 carries. I don't think he got any targets. Michael Carter, though, not dynamic usage, and now he has to go up against this dominant front seven. So I've got Michael Carter as a mid-tier RB3. And if we had a full 32 teams playing this week, he would definitely be in the RB4s. James Robinson, just confirming here, 5 carries for 17 yards. And that's what we should expect from him. He might get more carries, but it'll only be that efficient. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think of the Monday night podcasts, and we will do our best to make you all happy. Hit me up on Twitter at Nic Bodiford, NFL, NICBODIFORD. Hit us all up at NerdBall FF on Twitter. Follow us at all of the Instagrams and TikToks and things. Good luck this week.